What's going on, fam? A-Train here, bringing y'all another video, and today we're going to be talking about studio photography. Y'all know I love studio photography. I mainly shoot outdoors, but I do a good amount of studio work in my home. Those of you who've been on the channel for a while, you know I set up everything in my home, and that's how I do my studio photography. I don't have a professional studio or anything like that, but just going to be sharing my experiences and giving you just 5 helpful tips that I think can help you improve your studio photography and just take better images. And you already know how we do on this channel. We're about to get straight into it. All right, so the first tip I got for y'all is to keep your setup simple. Now, when I first started doing studio photography, you know, it's completely different from shooting outdoors. You have more control over light. You know, you don't have different elements and things like that in the background. You just have the plain backdrop. So it's completely different. You know, you have to really know like off-camera flash settings, how to, you know, dial in your camera settings, mixing that with flash, things like that. So I think it's very important to keep your setup simple. And something that I did at that point is I was trying to do too much. I was trying to advance too fast when it came to studio photography, and that caused me to get frustrated and not even want to do it at all. And I think that's what a lot of photographers do when they're trying to, you know, start something new. So I think if you're a beginner, it's best to start out with one light. And let me tell you, you can get some great images by just using one light. I know you may be seeing a lot of people using multiple lights and gels and all these different things, but if you just have the budget just for one light and you want to keep your stuff simple, just use one light. So I think it's best to start with just one light, master that one light, you know, learn everything about it, and then advance to multiple light setups and things like that. If you're wondering what light you should start with, I recommend starting out with something like the Godox AD200. I have a full review about that on my channel. I'll link it in the description below. So that's kind of what I started with when it came to studio photography. I think it's a simple light to learn. You know, it's pretty powerful, and it's just overall a great light. So if you're kind of confused about that, look into the Godox AD200. All right, so coming in at tip number 2 is to use a reflector. So in simple terms, what a reflector is just pretty much something that can reflect light and add additional light to your subject. I'll kind of give you all an example. You can see with this video, I have my light coming from this way. So you can see it's kind of more bright on this side, and on this side, you can see the shadows from, you know, not having the light on that side. So if I had a reflector right here, the light coming from this area would hit the reflector and reflect that light back on my face to kind of lighten the shadows on the right side of my face. So that's how a reflector works. It's pretty straightforward and it is simple to use. So I recommend, you know, getting a reflector to incorporate into your studio photography. All right, so tip number 3 is to use a modeling lamp. So I personally think modeling lamps are great. So you want to have a flash that has this feature. So with me personally, I use the Godox AD400 Pro. That's what I'm using now when it comes to studio photography. Sometimes I use the Godox 200, but the 400 Pro has a modeling lamp feature, so you can turn on that light, and it's pretty much like having a continuous light that just hits your subject, so you don't have to keep, you know, taking shots and having the flash fire off to see, and then checking your images back on your camera to see how the exposure looks on your subject. So if you have a constant light, a modeling lamp, it's easier to get your exposure right and just see, you know, right on the camera exactly how the light is hitting your subject. And to me, that really helps. And I think if you're a beginner, it just makes, you know, your studio photography easier. It's easier to expose how you want because you can already see it on the back of your camera. And I'm not saying you have to have something like this, but I do think it helps. And I think if you're already struggling with studio photography, having a constant light, you don't have to have a light with a modeling lamp. I just said that because I use the 400 Pro and it has the modeling lamp, but having a constant light, even like something like this is the Godox SL60W. You know, I could use this for studio photography. I've used it a couple of times. Having something like that, I just think it makes everything easier when it comes to getting your shots and getting that, you know, correct exposure that you're looking for. All right, so coming in at tip number 4 is to use the right colors for your photo shoots. Now, I think something like this is a game changer. When I really understood like colors and matching certain colors and the look, trying to get that, you know, just specific look that I'm going for, like colors play a big part, I feel like, in, you know, producing good studio photography work. When I first started, I made the mistakes of using, it was some shoots where I even used the same colors, like a black shirt on a black background. You know, it's, you know, I've done those types of things. So I started to learn and even looking at other people's work, like, man, the colors that they're using with, you know, their clients and then the background, it just makes the images look like just even better because they're using like colors that actually complement each other. So if you're really trying to improve your studio photography, take some time to plan your shoots. Make sure you have some say-so in what the models or clients are wearing, and just overall making sure that you use colors that look good together and they complement each other well. All right, so the last tip I got for y'all is to use single point focus. Now, let me tell you, when I first got into studio photography, this is the main thing I was struggling with, you know, and this is one of the worst feelings as a photographer. You just felt like you did a great shoot, you get home, you pitch your images, upload the images to the computer, and you're like, man, I took some great images, but they are not in focus. That is like the worst feeling in the world. So the issue that I personally had with this is I was using the wrong focus settings. So you have different focus settings with your camera. I shoot with Sony cameras like the Sony a6300, 6400, Sony a7 III. So I would use like wide focus. You know, this is, once again, I was just starting out. I didn't really understand a lot of stuff, but I learned over time that I needed to be using a single point focus to get my images nice and sharp, and also to focus on what I wanted to focus on. So when you're doing studio photography, you want to focus on the subject's eyes, right? So a lot of the times I would focus on their shoulder, their nose. When you're using, you know, the auto setting and continuous autofocus, it's gonna focus on weird stuff sometimes. So you want to have that control. Use that single point focus to get your images just tack sharp, because doesn't matter how good your setup is, your lighting, none of that stuff. If the image is out of focus, it's no good. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I do studio photography in my own home. Sometimes I do it in the garage, sometimes I do it in the living room. So if you're trying to do something like that, you know, you don't have a professional studio, you just need a place to shoot, you can actually shoot in your home. And I have a whole video about that, just showing my whole setup, my home photography studio, and I also break down all the equipment that I use. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out that video. I'm gonna link it somewhere up here and also in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like. It really helps. Subscribe to my channel. I post photography tips every single week. I will see you on my next video. Peace.